All right. Hello. Welcome to Unnecessary Roughness, Barstool's college football podcast brought to you by High Noon Hard Seltzer. We got a lot to get to. It's Big 12 preview day, but I got a preview for you. It's called a delicious drink that Kayce's going to talk about.
I am going to talk about it, Brandon. So it's Tuesday because I had a DraftKings golf tournament yesterday. I know Ev had an exciting charity/celebrity golf tournament yesterday. And Ev, I don't know if where you were was the same where I was. We were drinking high noons, and every group that was coming through had either the teas or some had the tequila. Most people had the original vodkas. It's the best golf course drink. I'm not a golf girl, really. Like, I'll go out and I'll play and I'll do things I need to for DraftKings or for the Classic or whatever. But I do know when I'm out there, I'm drinking high noons. Easy guess, easy pick.
I was responsibly crushing some limes. I was going with the lime flavor. Fantastic.
They had lime where I was too. I was actually surprised. I was like, oh, I never see the lime in the wild usually, or like in the lemon, which I still cannot find very often. They had a few of those. I mean, there's nothing better than a good high noon on a golf course. I didn't actually play. We were like posted up at the long drive contest hole and like doing pictures and doing like small talk. Again, high noon in my hand the entire time.
Oh, I was playing. I was ripping putts. By me, I was contributing just enough to feel good about that I could go home and be like, you know what? I had some high noons. Remember that putt I made on 17? That's all I was looking for.
Yeah, no, they just told me like, here's your tent, here's where you can post up, and here's a high noon, and we'll keep them coming. I was like, this is great. And Brandon, I'm gonna bring this up every single week. You won the gold medal in the high noon Olympics last week. You are a gold medal winner, and you had high noon across your chest.
You know, Kayce, not only did I win the basketball with a clutch last-second shot, but I also contributed to the soccer win. There were 8 events. There were 6 events. My team won 4 of them. I'm proud of my team, my country of Nikki Smokes and Mook and Rudy and KB. Was my team loaded with good athletes? Yeah, it was. And why? Because people didn't think I was a good athlete, but I showed them. And so with the high noon across my chest, I was a winner.
Winner. HighNoonSpirits.com. Find a pack near you.
I can't tell where the camera is I'm supposed to be. Am I looking at y'all right now?
Now you're looking at us.
Okay, because this camera is just a dummy. I'm looking at this camera, and I'm obviously not. So I'm over here. All right.
Yeah.
They didn't tell me. They didn't tell me what camera to look in. So, hi. It's Unnecessary Roughness. We're deep in preview season. So, I got to ask. We're 2 previews down. How's the feedback been for everybody on the Big Ten? And, I'll just start with Kayce. Because, Kayce, I've just got to – can I admit something to you right now?
Oh, God.
I did not give you enough guff. I'm not in the season yet. We don't have reps. I should have given you more guff for picking Alabama as your surprise team. They're the number 5 team in the country, Kayce.
I said it was a surprise to you because
to me, yeah, but I'm only one guy. Nobody else expects Alabama to lose 3 games.
But hold on, I thought you were the number 1 media personality, and you're the one that's always right. So if you're the one that's always right, people are going to be surprised.
You're not making your picks based on what I think. You're based on what everybody else thinks.
No, I do. Yes, they are a top 5 team, but I do feel like there is a narrative out there, whether it's a loud one or not, that without Nick Saban, they are not going to be the Alabama that we have seen in the past with Nick Saban. I'm not saying they're going to go win a national title this year, but I don't think there's going to be near as much of a drop-off as you would normally say losing the greatest head coach of all time. I also thought you were going to give me a problem for something else because I've been getting shit for something else I said in the SEC.
I'll circle back, but Big Ev, and I'm not going to overreact here, but I still haven't gotten over you being a massive piece of fucking shit for not only coming into my conference and calling my team the worst team, which they will not be, also sucking up to the other co-hosts saying Texas A&M was going to be the surprise team. Like, what a pansy-ass way to enter the SEC that was for you.
But see, the thing with the A&M one was no like kiss ass. That was genuinely, I think their ceiling is high. Like, I think they have a lot of potential. And also I said on the previous night, we'll get into ours later today. I'm very in that category. I was very schedule dependent as well, and the schedule just unfolds for them very nicely as well. So there was both elements of that with A&M. That was genuine.
I made a decision today.
Uh-oh.
No, it's just a personal decision when I'm writing when I'm doing the previews. As we get in the Big 12, because I'm going to be honest. How many teams is it? 16 teams or whatever. 16 teams in the Big 12. So that means I read 16 schedules, and they all look the same to me. Every single one of them Every single one of them looked the same. Like I'd read it because in the SEC with the new teams, there is some variance. Like Ole Miss does not play the same schedule Georgia does. In the Big 12, I swear to God, every other week somebody's playing TCU, somebody's playing UC. Like it all blends together, and there's no in the Big 12 when we get there. There's no super duper elite team like there are in the SEC, so they're all kind of playing the same. So I considered schedules, but I also didn't consider schedules when ranking my teams.
Well, when we did, earlier, like when we first restarted the whole like new era of this podcast, we went into like who the big brands in the Big 12 are going to be. So we kind of did like a miniature preview of the Big 12. And what I came to a conclusion in that, and I agree when we do this preview, is that inside the conference, it's going to be really, really exciting. And there's going to be some crazy games happening. And Kansas State, we go down the list. From a national standpoint, from who you think could actually compete in the college football playoff for a national title, the Big 12 is not a hard hitter. Like, that's just a fact. There are some teams you can make the argument for, but overall, it's not the heavy hitting conferences like the last two that we've done, which is an easy thing to say because it's the SEC and the Big 10. But the Big 12 to me is by far the fourth of the Power Four conference of who's going to be competing for a national title.
So I think it has its own strengths. We'll get to the Big 12 in a minute because the first topic is not Big 12 centric. We'll talk plenty about the Big 12, probably an hour or two about the Big 12. So we're going to get to that. I guess the big news this week, there's been some small news. There's been injury news out of camp. Baxter getting hurt at Texas. Your running back getting hurt at A&M. Some stuff like that. But that's all camp stuff. That'll come out in the wash. The AP Top 25 dropped yesterday, at 11 a.m. Central Time. So I got the AP Top 25. I'll group these teams by 5, and then I'll stop and ask a question. So number 1 in the AP Top 25, I don't feel like there's any surprises here at the top. You got number 1, Georgia, who got 46 first-place votes. You have number 2, Ohio State, who got 15 first-place votes. Number 3, Oregon, who got 1 first-place vote. Number 4, Texas, who didn't get a first-place vote, and Alabama, number 5. So your top 5, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, Alabama. Any surprises there, Big Ev? It doesn't appear to be.
No, I don't think so. I don't think at all. That's it's a standard top 5. I feel like the top 3 almost, or top 4, I'll say, is almost unanimous, but even Alabama still, like, they're just going to be in the top 5, so.
Yeah.
Chalk.
Kayce?
It wouldn't have surprised me if Ole Miss was ahead of Alabama just because of what Ole Miss has coming back and losing Nick Saban. But there's no issues. I mentioned it. I thought you were going to say you're going to give me shit for picking Texas to be in the Big 12 or in the SEC championship just because I had my fellow Aggies not happy about that. Texas is just really fucking loaded. So like when you're looking at it from that standpoint, like Texas has to be there. And then the top 3 are easy.
Number 6 is Ole Miss. Number 7, Notre Dame. Number 8, Penn State. Number 9, Michigan. And number 10, Florida State. This is where it starts getting a little bit more interesting. I'll just point out my issues with this real quick. We're just going to do it every year with Notre Dame. And listen, I have been pro Notre Dame on this podcast. I really have. I was pro Notre Dame. I picked them to go to the playoff a couple years ago when they went to the playoff. I picked them to beat Clemson when nobody else did. Like, I've been pro Notre Dame. But I just don't think Marcus Freeman's a great college football coach. I think he's probably an average college football coach. And I know they signed an offensive coordinator out of LSU, and that LSU offensive coordinator had a really impressive offense last year with a Heisman winner and 2 first-round receivers, and he ain't got that in Notre Dame. So I think Notre Dame at 7 is a little high. I'm not saying they're tremendously overrated. I'd have them like 12 to 15. I like Penn State at 8. I would probably have them at 7. Michigan, Ole Miss at 6. That's about right. I'm not going to beef with that. Michigan at 9 is where it gets. I just don't know what you do with Michigan. You're just guessing with Michigan, really. That could be right. That could be low. That could be high. You're just kind of guessing with them. And then Florida State, number 10. I think that's high for them. I just am not sure I'm ready to put a top 10 label on a team who's going to be starting DJ Uiagalelei. That's my thoughts, Big Ev. I don't know if you agree or disagree with any of that.
No, the 2 you point out, 2 of mine, it was Notre Dame being too high. The only thing with them is we talk about schedules. They're another schedule where if they beat A&M, very favorable for them. But that's a massive if. And Florida State, I was going to say the same thing. Florida State just lost so much. And I agree with you. I think going from Jordan Travis to DJ is such a downgrade that I feel like it's weird to say that things went perfect for them last year because they did the exact opposite at the very end. But in terms of just the way things unfolded up until the Jordan Travis injury, things went perfect for them. Their defense was elite. They lost multiple guys first, second round on the D-line. I just think even as great as like Peyton is on the outside, like really good edge rusher, they still lost so much that I don't know. I agree. Like them having a very down year would not shock me whatsoever.
Kayce?
I know we're gonna do the ACC preview on the next episode, but I mean, what you just said about Florida State's incredibly accurate because not only did they lose Jordan Travis, they lost somebody like basically at every position. They lost all their skill players, they lost a ton. But the biggest thing to me is Notre Dame, and I know we've gone through their schedule, and even outside of Week 1, what I think that they're looking at is the Notre Dame push, which there always is, and they're putting a lot of stock in Riley Leonard having a lot of the reason that Duke had success last year. And I'm not saying he shouldn't by any stretch of the imagination. But the fact that Riley Leonard is playing against Mike Elko in Week 1 is going to tell us a whole lot. I don't know why they're putting more stock in Riley Leonard than Mike Elko, but Marcus Freeman, I agree, Brandon. I think that's high. The only issue with everything else is then who do you put ahead of them? Do you put Utah ahead of Florida State? I think that I would, but I don't know. Like, who do you put ahead of Michigan? Because we don't know. They did win the national title last year. So
Michigan I'm not worried about because Michigan's just a phony number, and it could be phony low, it could be phony high. You just don't know how they're going to react to the allegations still going. Is Sharon Moore even going to be able to coach? Like, there's a lot going on with Michigan. I have no problem with them at 9. You got to slot them in somewhere. Their defense is going to be otherworldly talented. I do think their offense takes a big step back, but like, put them at 9. They won the national title. Fine. I'm not worried about where you put Michigan because that'll come out in the wash sometime. 11 Missouri, 12 Utah, 13 LSU, 14 Clemson, and 15 Tennessee. So, Big Ev, I'll let you get the first swipe at these 5. 11 Missouri, 12 Utah, 13 LSU, 14 Clemson, and 15 Tennessee. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Kayce. I think Utah should be on the back half of the top 10. Even Tennessee, I even think could be like a hair higher. I would have them even in probably like that 10 to 12 range, but now you're getting to a point where it's kind of what you said with these phony numbers where it's like you got to slot all these teams somewhere. Like Clemson in that 14 to me makes sense. The others make sense. But yeah, I would think Utah should be higher.
Kayce?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Utah's the only one that I really take like an issue with there. I would put them in the top 10. I would put Tennessee ahead of LSU just because I don't believe in what LSU has coming back. I mean, you lose the Heisman Trophy winner and you lose all that. Like, we know what Nico is supposed to be. But these are all the numbers, right, that like by week 3, week 4, they're all going to start to really be put in the wash. But I think that of everybody in the top 25 who was the most disrespected, to me, it's absolutely Utah at number 12. They should be a top 10 team.
I would flip Clemson at 14 and Florida State with 10. I like Clemson better than Florida State. I think they're going to be a better team this year. That's personal preference. I realize a lot of people don't agree with that, and that's fine. But we all know, spoiler alert, I will be right and you will be wrong. So that's how life works.
Which is why Alabama is going to be the surprising team in the SEC, Brandon Walker. Because you will be wrong.
I can't believe I let you do that. I'm disappointed in myself.
I mean, you tried to push back, and I gave you the reason.
But it wasn't a good reason.
It is a good reason.
It's not a good reason. You're not a good reason.
Well, that's fair.
16 Oklahoma, 17 Oklahoma State. That's just hilarious. 18 Kansas State, 19 Miami, and 20 Texas A&M. I'll start.
Shocker.
I mean, Miami and A&M, like, at some point. Listen, Kayce, I've been pro A&M on this podcast. I've never shit on you.
I know you have.
Maybe Big Ev is right, and maybe they're a surprise team, and maybe they win games, and maybe they come out and they're in the top 15 team in week 4. Coming into the season, new coach, what tells us that they are the 20th best team in the country? They haven't shown it. They haven't at any point over the last few years shown that. So Miami's the same way. Like, Miami last 3 years, 7-6, 5-7, 6-6. Like, that ain't great. And we give them the ranking every year because reasons. I know Cam Ward's coming in, but we've had guys come into Miami a lot, and the roster does look better, but the roster always looks better at Miami. So I just don't get it. Like, A&M and Miami, you can count on them being overrated at the beginning every single year.
I have a hot take. Now, first of all, I do agree with you that it's like every year these teams are going to be there. I think that A&M having Mike Elko, again, we talk about Riley Leonard at Notre Dame, which they're putting a lot of stock into. I do think voters are looking at Mike Elko having the success he did at Duke, already having the success at defense at A&M, which will already have a stacked defense. It's the roster. So if you say Jimbo Fisher was the problem that couldn't put the recruiting together, then that's potentially what they're looking at. My hot take is I would rather not be ranked in the top 5 or the top 25 AP going into the year because of this exact conversation. Because if you just say, okay, A&M's outside the top 25 and then they go beat Notre Dame, okay, then they start going up the ranks. Then it's like, all right, fine, they're proving it. Now it's like, well, what did A&M do to deserve to be at 20? Well, they have a hell of a recruiting class every single year. They have a really good head coach, a really good quarterback, but they're always overrated. I don't want that storyline. I'd rather be more quiet going into the season. So I agree with you.
But if you have a bad garbage man,
okay,
and everything stinks, and his
Right.
route stinks, you hire a new garbage man, well, that route's not going to be magically smelling better his first day on the route. You have to give him a little bit to clean things up. I don't think.
Look at guys like Sonny Dykes. Like, you can do it in year one now with the way that the portal and NIL works. Like, in the past, you're absolutely right. And I am not saying that A&M is going to catapult to a national championship winning team right away. But to say you have to give him time, if you have talent, that's.
I'm not saying you got to give him. I'm saying by the end of the season, maybe you have in fact turned things around. Maybe, but I'm saying walking in the door, we assume game one, this team's going to be ready to go because it's a new coach. Like it takes a little bit of time to get everything on the right page and in the right direction. Can we let him do it before we give him the reward of a top 20 ranking?
That's fair. And don't you have A&M upsetting Notre Dame in week 1?
I don't really think it's that big of an upset because I got Notre Dame like the 15th best team in the country. I got Texas A&M. I'd probably have them right outside the top 25, but it's in Kyle Field. Yeah, I do have Texas A&M beating Notre Dame, but that's, again, I have them beating Notre Dame. I don't have them in the top 25. I want them to beat Notre Dame.
And you don't have Notre Dame at 7 too. Okay,
yes. When they beat Notre Dame, get their ass in there. When they go beat Florida, let's get their ass in there. Until then,
I would be totally okay with that. And I know that that's not supposed to be like we always make fun of the top 25 every year. I don't understand why certain teams are rated Notre Dame being at 7. However, then you have to ask, who would you put ahead of A&M and Miami? And I'm going to be a little bit of a homer because it's like when you look at the SEC,
I'd put Kansas, I'd put NC State, I'd put Iowa, I'd put all the teams behind them ahead of them.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair. That's fair. This is also one of those things we do every year. We're not going to care in week 2, week 3.
It's not going to matter. None of this matters. But if you really get down to it, folks, all this college football stuff we talk about, none of it really fucking matters. None of it really fucking matters.
Now, hold on a minute.
None of it fucking
college football absolutely
matters. None of it matters. Okay. Big Av, did you have anything to say about the group that included Oklahoma at 16, Oklahoma State at 17, Kansas State at 18, Miami at 19, and Texas A&M at 20?
Oklahoma, overrated. Too high.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. Like A&M, obviously, I've made it clear that I'm higher in A&M this year, and I think they'll get off to a good start. But them being 20 off the rip, I don't really care because I agree with you. Like, I think they're going to beat Notre Dame. I think they beat Florida, and then they're up in the top, 15 probably after that.
Lastly, the final 5, Arizona at number 21, Kansas at 22, USC at 23, North Carolina State at 24, and Iowa at 25. Others receiving votes, Louisville would be 26, Virginia Tech would be 27, Boise State would be 28, SMU 29, and Iowa State would be 30, followed by Liberty, Washington, West Virginia, Memphis, Nebraska, Wisconsin. Those are all the teams that got double-digit votes, which are really, kind of all that counts. So anything in that last group, Kayce, you're a Big F?
Not really. I mean, I think that USC is getting, which is fair because you get the Lincoln Riley, you get the Miller Moss bump, but going into the Big Ten, like if they can't play defense, and they couldn't play defense, they didn't at Oklahoma, they didn't in the Pac-12. The Big Ten's a different monster when it comes to not playing defense. So I guess they're assuming that he's going to be able to play good enough defense to keep them up, but I don't know if I would put USC in the top 25.
Big F, thoughts?
Yeah, I think NC State should be a little higher. Arizona obviously did a lot last year, but they've had so much turnover and so much chains outside the quarterback receiver that I think they could be lower. And even Louisville, I think, should be in the top 25 with their defense. But like you said, this is all just stuff like a month from now.
All right, yeah. That's all what the AP voters think, guys. Now let's get into what we think, and that's really all that matters. We're going to talk about the Big 12. Kayce, you had something to add there?
Well, no, I was going to ask just to put a bow on that. I mean, I know we've said but Brandon, who do you think was the most disrespected, and who do you think should have been much higher? Like if you had to pick one, so like when we get to the end of the season, you look and you're like, these are my 2 teams. Who would they be?
So, I think Clemson at 14 is being disrespected. I think it's a coach with a history of living around the top 10. Even their bad years recently have been pretty fucking good. I think Notre Dame at 7 is your biggest. Too much respect being paid. I understand they got a good defense. Like, they got a really good defense on paper. Riley Leonard's a good quarterback. And Notre Dame fans have argued me blue in the face over the last couple of days. Yeah, we've got some transfer receivers. That's great. That's great. Everybody, you know who else has transfer receivers?
Everybody?
Every fucking team in the country. Everybody's got transfer receivers they're excited about. We got some good running backs that got some time between Audric Estime last year. Guess who else has running backs they're excited about who got time last year behind their starter? Every fucking team in the country. Like, you got Sam Hartman last year, and it didn't really make much of a difference. Why do I think Riley Leonard's going to be this world game changer for you right now? Like, he is a good, solid quarterback. He's not Caleb Williams. Like, he's not a Heisman Trophy winner. He is a good, solid quarterback. Like, so I just don't see it. And you've got a coach who hasn't – maybe he's winning in recruiting where you haven't won before, but he hasn't done anything on the field to make me excited about that program. Like, I just don't see it 7. Do I like their roster between 12 and 15? Sure. 7's crazy. Like, 7's just wild for them. And then again, Clemson was my most disrespected.
Yeah, mine's overrated is Notre Dame as well, and then Utah is my most disrespected. Ev, who do you have?
Yeah, I almost hate that we all feel this way about Notre Dame. I would say the most disrespected, either Utah or Tennessee. I think
y'all are a little too crazy about Utah.
Well, we're gonna get into that, aren't we?
I think you're a touch too crazy about Utah. That's all. So now, before we get into our Big 12 preview, 2 things. Number 1, Kayce's going to tell us about somebody, and then I have a second thing. Go, Kayce.
Well, it's somebody that we all love. It's DraftKings, baby. It is time to start looking at college football, obviously on this show, the NFL. But Ev, I'm told that there's a big UFC fight coming up that apparently DraftKings is loving right now. So you can tell us a little bit about that because you're a fight guy.
Yep, huge card, UFC 305 in Australia this weekend, a little down under action. Israel Adesanya, DDP middleweight championship. Steve Ursay, Kai Kara-France, probably a title eliminator at flyweight. Just honestly, just the main card is just stacked. My guy Carlos Prates, if you watch Spinning Backface, is a Big Ev guy on Team Big Ev. Absolute stud fighting the Leech. It just banger after banger after banger. DraftKings has all the props. Like, every bet you can imagine that you can make on a fight, they have it. So shout out DraftKings. Very, very excited for UFC 305.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. It's stacked. Go ahead, Brandon. What were you going to say?
Do you need to go take care of something?
No.
Well, does he have thoughts on the Big 12?
Yes, he does.
Ask him for a win total.
No, it's okay.
All right.
We're good. I personally, if he was by himself right now, it's actually his friend that's making that noise.
Oh, it's not him. I was
going
to say he's almost he's a year and a half old now. He's never made a noise like that on the show.
No, that's not him. That's his friend, and he is not currently in my vicinity. He's happily. I know that he is happily with an adult right now. That was not him. Apparently, his friend has thoughts though.
Well, you know what? We all have thoughts on college football. All right.
But if you are listening to this and you are not on DraftKings, new customers, you bet $5 and you get $150 in bonus bets instantly. So download DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. Use code RUFF. That's code RUFF for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. UFC 305, it's going to be a ripper of a good time only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. And Brandon, I know we did this a few weeks ago, it feels like it was about a month ago now. We put out our futures on a few things. I saw you put out some futures, and that made me so excited to see our photos on DraftKings with like the college football. It's here, baby. It's here.
It's here. We're inside, 10 days to what's today? I don't know, 24th. We're close. We're a week and a half away. So, all right. Before we get into the Big 12, actually categories and predictions, I would like to start it off with some questions. Before we do that, I have to tell you this. You may have noticed Liam Blutman is not here today. Liam Blutman is on assignment. I think he's in Cincinnati playing tennis with Marty Mush, Carlos Alcaraz, Ben Shelton, and the like. How Marty Mush continues to do stuff with famous guys, I'll never know. That guy fucking sucks. But apparently Marty just gets to hang out with every famous person in the world. So, anywho, I like Marty. That's obviously a joke. So anyway, Blutman's not here. but you say Blutman knows ball, and I'd like to know his thoughts. Okay. What we did was we had Blutman, who couldn't be here during the live taping. We had him record his thoughts and send them to Big Ev. Big Ev is going to give Blutman his own corner of the show at the end. After we get done with the show, you have a 15-minute video waiting for you of Blutman going over his thoughts. Now, what will a 15-minute uninterrupted Blutman video be like? I ain't going to fucking find out, but hopefully you do.
It's not even the Blutman minute. Like when Ev told me how long it was, I was like, of course it is. And it's on camera too. So this man set up an iPhone and just went to work. I love it. And he's doing it for the ACC preview too. So, I mean, listen.
From what I understand, we have 15 minutes of Big 12 and 12 minutes of ACC.
11 minutes in the ACC. He only had 11 for us. But he just set up his phone, propped up, it looks like, on a desk in a hotel room, and he just talked for 15 minutes straight about the Big 12. And if you're watching this, if you're brave enough to stick around, you're going to see it.
All right, so we'll have that later. Before we get into the categories, I just want to start with some questions about the Big 12. The first one's kind of a statement. Kayce's already said it, but I don't think anybody's going to mistake this Big 12 for having top-of-the-line elite or multiple top-of-the-line elite national title contenders like the Big Ten has with Ohio State, with Oregon, with Penn State, with Michigan, on down the line. SEC certainly has Georgia and Alabama and Texas and Ole Miss and, on down the line. There's just a plethora of teams like that in those conferences. I don't think you have that logjam of top elite teams in this conference, but what you do have is a large, and I mean a large group of very competitive teams tightly packed together. And I really believe if we got 8 people to talk about the Big 12 in this preview, you could have 8 different predicted champions. I think if I'm picking up what y'all are putting down, probably going to have 2 the same champion with you guys. I don't have that champion, and I don't know if Blutman does either. So I really think, depending on which way the wind blows, who takes an injury, there's 8 to 10 teams that can win this league, Big F. Kayce?
There are a lot of
there's
Big F.
I think 8 teams that can win the league, I think, is strong.
It's a lot, man.
I would say I think there's maybe 5, maybe 6 that I genuinely think could win it.
All right. Let me make sure. I just want a list of Big 12 teams in my face. Okay.
By the way, Brandon. By the way.
Hi. Hello.
It happened.
I know, right?
I got mine too.
It's the best. Okay.
It's beautiful.
All right. Big F. Stop me when I say something wrong, okay? I'm going to say some sentences. You say when I'm wrong. Utah can win the Big 12. That's correct, right?
Yes.
Yes, correct.
Kansas State can win the Big 12.
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm not asking if you're predicting that. I'm just saying, can you see that world unfolding? Oklahoma State can win the Big 12. Yes. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Arizona can win the Big 12.
I say I don't think so. That's
okay. Again, I'm not asking if you think they will. UCF. I'll just speed this up.
I'll say
I'm going to group them together. Let's do
this. What? UCF, I'm going to say UCF. I'll say yes that they can.
I'm going to group them together. Iowa State, TCU, Kansas, West Virginia. That's a group of 9. After that, I don't think anybody can. But Iowa State, TCU, Kansas, West Virginia. Do you think are you just blown away, shocked if West Virginia wins this league?
Yes.
You are.
Yeah, kind of. I would be shocked. I think Iowa State could definitely win it.
Are you blown away shocked if Kansas wins it?
No.
No. Not as much as West Virginia, for sure.
All right. Well,
I think their ceiling is high.
Kayce, you want to go ahead and say that Colorado could win it right here, or do you want to do that later?
Stay tuned, folks.
Oh boy, I swear to God. Okay. Now,
stay tuned, Brandon. No, I think 8 teams is too many. I would say the top 4 for me, that if I was really looking at, again, from inside the conference is different, but if I'm looking at it from a national standpoint, I think there's maybe 2 teams that I would put there. But I think Utah, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, and for me, Kansas are the 4 teams I really think could win the conference. And then outside of that, of course, like, would it surprise me if Iowa State does? No. UCF, no. But I wouldn't put like that. I think they will win it. Like, I think there's 4 that are very, like, I could make an argument for all 4. After that, it kind of drops off.
I think y'all are shortchanging some teams like Arizona and West Virginia. West Virginia's got to have everything go right. They got to have some defensive pieces fall into place. But offensively, with that quarterback, I think they're going to be competitive in this league. So I think
and by the way, if Jed Fish was still at Arizona, I'd feel differently. That's a huge indication. I mean, I understand that they still have Noah Fafita, they still have the other guys, but like, losing that head coach is a massive reason for me to say I don't think they're going to be bad, but to win a conference without him in the first year, when you have teams like Utah, Kansas State, and Oklahoma State up there, would be tough.
All right, now I want to ask about the Utah Utes specifically. Obviously, last year you kind of throw it away because Cam Rising got hurt, and you didn't have him. You had 2 backups that have since transferred out, and not only a quarterback, they had injuries throughout injuries. Last year was a throwaway year for Utah, but previous to that, they had won 2 straight Pac-12 titles. Here's my question, Big Ev, about Utah, and I know they're good, and I know they're always physically tough. How much of their success in the Pac-12 was due to being tough in a non-tough league? And does getting to a league, and I'm not saying the Big 12 is tough throughout, because it's not, but is getting to a league with other tough teams like Kansas State, like Oklahoma State, possibly going to take away the advantage they had in the Pac-12, which was paper soft throughout the whole league?
I'll say this as a Utah guy. It's definitely a fair point. It's definitely a fair point, because the thing in the Pac-12 with Utah was that if you went to Utah, it essentially was a guaranteed loss. It felt that way, at least, and it really has been that way in reality. That's fair, because I agree with you. Like, a team like Kansas State, even a team like Oklahoma State, I don't think they'll. Even a team like Iowa State, I'll say, I don't think they'll be able to just bully. So that probably is true, but I also think there's truth on the other side as well, that I think that their toughness will carry over. Like we said, the Big 12 isn't exactly just this like ground and pound run it conference. It definitely is more than it was 10 years ago, when there was a 65 that felt like 55 every other week. But I feel like it'll translate very well. I mean, like you said, going there is just brutal to go play there. And Whittingham's is a great coach. If there is anything you can set your watch to in college football, it's Kyle Whittingham. So that's the element of it that I think I trust the most. Are they giving up their toughness edge slightly? But I mean, they're just going to be a good defense, and they're going to be tough. And especially this year, silly with Cam Rising, also a guy that I just, as long as he's on the field, I trust them unequivocally.
Kayce, thoughts on this premise?
Yeah, no, I mean, I have a lot to say about Utah because, I mean, spoiler alert, like you said, I picked it. I just think that when you look at how bad their injuries were last year, and they still were able to win 8 games because their defense was so good, and they were playing in a league in the Pac-12 that had way more star power at quarterback. Now, I'm not saying the Big 12 is bad at quarterback by any stretch, because we know that's not true. But the way that Utah has been able to play over the last few years against a league with crazy offenses, like, yeah, it's going to be tougher in the Big 12 a little bit, but it's not like they're going to the Big 10 or the SEC. And exactly what Ev said with Kyle Whittingham. I mean, this isn't the first time that Kyle Whittingham has been at Utah and they had to make a jump into a different conference. I mean, he went from the Mountain West into the Pac-12 and it was fine. So what makes me think that him going from the Pac-12 to the Big 12, they're going to struggle? And you look at the rest of the conference and there's just nobody that jumps out and is like, oh my God, they're more talented with a healthy Utah, which is why I like them so much. And Utah's going to be tough no matter what conference they're in to play at, by the way. Like, it doesn't matter if they're in the Pac-12 or the Big 12. Going to Utah is always going to suck.
I know they're going to be tough. I'm not worried about them being tough, but there's a difference in lining up and smash mouth bullying USC's punk asses and trying to do the same thing to Kansas State. Like, Kansas State, you hit them in the mouth, they're just going to wipe it off and look at it like, what the fuck was that? Like, USC, you hit them in the mouth, like, oh my God, I wish I could go back to Oklahoma. Like that,
and then I would rather play against Avery Johnson right now than Caleb Williams at USC. So like, you have that.
Maybe, but I feel like their inherent advantages in the Pac-12 are now gone against certain teams in the Big 12. That doesn't mean other advantages don't appear, right? So like that doesn't mean I don't think they might win the league. They're going to be a top 2 team in the league. I just think being able to go to Stanford and Cal and USC and Arizona State and just physically bully them all up and down the field was kind of their identity, and that's going to be lessened at least a little bit at the start when Kansas State and Iowa State and Oklahoma State are looking back at you. That's all I think. Big Ev, I have a question about 2 teams, okay? It's Oklahoma State and Arizona. Arizona, of course, finished 10-3 last year. They beat Oklahoma in a bowl game. By the end of the year, they were one of the best teams in the country. Certainly, they lost their coach, but they brought back their quarterback. They brought back their great receiver. They brought back a good deal of talent. Oklahoma State brings back everybody. I mean, everybody. Everybody who's ever played for Oklahoma State is back this year. Alan Bowman is back for his 28th year of college eligibility. Why do both of these teams have an over-under win total of 7.5? Does that give you pause?
Well, it's obviously we'll get into actually the preview and the bigger questions. I have a lot of pause in Arizona. Because I'll put it because I think for Arizona, if it wasn't for Fafita, I think people would think this is potentially like a middle of the pack Big 12 team this year, and they've been put in that upper echelon because of that. And part of it, I understand. I mean, listen, he came in last year and was a total game changer. As much as a game changer we saw in college football last year, when he started playing quarterback, I mean, I think it was a thing where it wasn't like they plugged him in because they needed a spark. It was an injury, and he was that good that they had to just say, hey, like, Delora, like, you're out. Like, Fafita's staying in. He's that good.
Yeah.
But just the amount of turnover they had with the coach and even still some of the players, I have a lot more faith in Oklahoma State being good this year than I do Arizona.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. But I see the win totals, and I'm like, both of these teams on paper have everything going for them, and Vegas just doesn't believe in them for some reason. It kind of gives me pause to thinking about them. Now, last team I'll ask about before we get into the categories. Did y'all know Colorado's in the Big 12?
No, tell me more.
I shouldn't have to tell you more because Colorado is the only thing in the news at all times ever. Mm-hmm. Their coach likes to treat reporters like shit, even though he went 4-8 in his first season. Thoughts, Kayce?
No, Brandon. I will say though, I think that it's very funny that every time I post a photo on Instagram and Dion likes it, there are people in the comments like, "Oh, it's like no, he is my actual friend, folks." And I will tell the truth. It's not a good look to talk to reporters like that. I think that Dion knows more what he's doing than people are giving him credit for, though.
That's just.
I'm not saying he should do that by any stretch. Yeah. I wouldn't. But I don't think that Dion, the human being, is just completely ignorant to what he's doing. Just like I didn't think, and again, winning cures all. There's been a lot of other coaches that have acted certain ways in front of the media, and they know exactly what they're doing. And if you're winning, it's fine. The issue is he's not winning yet. So that's why it's a bad look. It's a bad look no matter what, in my opinion. But when Nick Saban did it, nobody had an issue with it because Nick Saban was winning.
They got enough transfer juice in this Colorado team to turn this thing around?
Turn it around.
All right. Can they go to a bowl game? So that's a no.
I don't think they will. But it's this weird thing where even like you said, and I'm not disputing any of the way he's treated reporters and all that, but even it was just funny when you had said like after he went 4-8 last year, and it's crazy. It's crazy to think back and say where we were at this time in 2023, where if you had said they won 4 games, you'd be like, wow, he did a pretty good job. So he almost was a victim of his early success. Like if they don't go win that TCU game, and I'll give you Brandon, I'll give you credit because you pointed out, I believe, in real time that, like, are we sure that TCU was kind of a paper tiger? Are they were in the national championship last year, but they lost the whole fucking team, and they're nowhere near the team they were in 2022 that they were in 2023. So I'll give you credit for that, for saying that in like as it was happening. But I almost like that game got so much hype, and then they go smash Nebraska, just smash them, and I think the hype just went just obviously out of control, and then they have the way they dropped some games they shouldn't have at the end of the season. But I kind of think they're just similar to what they were last year, to be honest. I really don't think they're much better, much worse. I think they probably are 4-8, 5-7.
Yeah. Kayce, any thoughts that they make a bowl or even do better than that, get up in that 8, 9, 10 win range?
I think that maybe we should get into the preview, and you should stay tuned.
Fair enough. Okay, so we'll do just that after you tell us about one more of our partners.
Cars.com, Brandon. I know you're a big cars guy.
CARS, cars.com. They got over 2 million cars at all times, 50,000 cars uploaded daily. I am in the car shopping business right now, and I'm trying to figure out exactly what I'm going to do in the future. And cars.com is helping me narrow it down. I got to get a safe car, but I got to get a flashy car. I got to hit all these barometers and all these checkpoints that I've never checked before, since I'm going to be having a young driver in the family. Nervous about it, a little bit sentimental, a little bit sad, but also get to buy my girl a car. So what a feeling that is to buy your daughter her first car. So I'm doing it with cars.com, trying to find the exact right thing for my family and for her. And that's where you should go to. Cars.com, they have everything. And if you're trying to sell your car, they can tell you your value for your car.
Yep, track your car's value. And I can imagine, Brandon, as you're getting ready to have her drive, that safety is a massive thing. You don't have to go to a lot and ask somebody that might lie to you. A car salesman might lie to you in real time about the safety on cars.com. You can check all of that. And I mean, it's crazy that she's already starting to drive, but you're taken care of on cars.com. And again, everybody that's listening, whether you're in the market for a new car, maybe in the future, track your car's value on cars.com. Get you some air conditioning seats. Get you some heated seats. Get you whatever you need on cars.com.
All right, now let's go into the Big 12. And we start with, it was very easy in the SEC because it was unanimous Vanderbilt, except for people that tried to be a fucking prick. Now, in the Big 12, I don't know. I think there's 2 or 3 options here. Big Ev, who will be the worst team in the Big 12?
So I actually I agree with you. That I think to me there was really 2. I guess I'll say there's 3 options. I went with Houston, and I really like Willie Fritz. It just is one of the roster is just it's just in shambles. I mean, and to give to Willie Fritz's credit, he was horrible his first year at Tulane, and obviously things went very, very well there next couple of years onward. So, but I think just the spot this Houston team is in, it's just hard to get behind something. I've been reading up on kind of his mentality. I think he's putting in kind of he's really on the foundation here of just trying to lay, hey, ball security. We're going to run the football. They do have a good running back that I appreciate. I think they're going to try to build the offense around him, but I just don't think they're going to have it this year. It's going to be a process for Willie Fritz to get in there, but I think they're definitely going to get it. I think they're going to get it going in the next few years, but not in 2024.
Kayce, who's the worst team in the Big 12?
It's Houston, and for all the reasons you just said, I like Donovan Smith, like the Texas Tech transfer, but he had some fine yards, but he could not stop turning the ball over. You look at the recruiting class that Dana Holgorsen left, and I know, again, it changes now with the portal and with all that, but just horrible recruiting. They're at the bottom of Power 5 last year, and I know that in the Big 12, and Brandon, you mentioned this, that all the schedules kind of look the same. That's fair. Houston also has to play OU out of conference. So to me, it's like, okay, fine, you get the craziness in the Big 12. You also have to go and play OU in the SEC. I don't see how they won 2 Big 12 games last year, maybe like that. I don't see them improving really, really quickly. So I'm going to agree with Big Ev. I think Willie Fritz is a great coach when he has some time. It's not going to be in year 1 with Houston.
So I did not pick Houston. I think Willie Fritz will be tasked with a tough task, but I think it's a great place to build at. It's somewhere it's never really been built at. He's going to find some recruiting there. He's a program builder, and he will build the program. You can't build a program in year 1 when it's that big of a roster turnover. But I didn't pick them because why? I believe in Willie Fritz. I think he's a very good coach. I think he'll at least do enough to stay out of the bottom. I didn't pick Arizona State because I think their coach is pretty solid. I didn't pick BYU. I'll tell you who I did pick, and I'll tell you why I picked them. I picked the Cincinnati Bearcats. Why? Because I think they far and away have the worst coach in the league. And I think when you hire a guy from Louisville who Louisville fans desperately and detestedly wanted out of town, he was terrible there. If you didn't hire him, he probably wouldn't have a job. I still can't believe this is Cincinnati's coach. I don't get it. I don't understand. It's a lot better. If you look at Cincinnati's history over the last 20 years, they produced solid coaches. Even Butch Jones at Cincinnati was really goddamn good. Brian Kelly, there's some good-ass coaches. and you continue that lineage with Luke Fickell, and then you continue that lineage with Satterfield.
Scott Satterfield.
Like, what? They've got the worst coach, the worst future, and the worst team until he is not there anymore, and they get serious and hire a Cincinnati level coach because he sucks. He does, and that's why I got them last. I think they're the worst team because they have the worst coach.
In the history of this podcast, that is when, like, when we go back and look, like when you talk about like coaching hire, like scratching your head decisions, like he's up there. He is up there of like all the stuff that we've talked about, because like he wanted the hell out before, and then Cincinnati's like, oh, Luke Fickell goes to Wisconsin, please, let's bring this guy in. Still doesn't make any sense. However, I do think Cincinnati has an opportunity to win a couple more games in Houston, but would it surprise me if they won 0 games? Absolutely not. He stinks.
All right, Big Ev, who is the surprise team in the Big 12?
So I think the surprise, I talked about them a little bit before. I think the surprise team is going to be Iowa State. They're the team, you want to talk about returning the whole team. They literally return the entire fucking team. 20 starters. Really like Rocco Beck. Thought he had a really, really good freshman season. I think he's going to have a big time here. And I think Matt Campbell is a coach that we've kind of forgotten about. He was the guy that had all these in the talk for all those big jobs in the Big Ten. It's crazy we forget like 4 years ago before Harbaugh turned around and we thought he was going to be getting canned or go somewhere else. He can take the Michigan job, maybe the Michigan State job before Mel Tucker came in, was like the hot name in coaching. And I still think he's a damn good coach. I think their defense is going to be really, really good. And I really think they're going to be a team that's going to be in the upper echelon of the Big 12, competing potentially for the conference title. So I think Iowa State's my surprise team. I think they're going to be one of the elite teams in the conference.
Kayce, who's your surprise team?
Well, here it is. Drum roll, please. And I know when people see this graphic and when they hear it, they're going to be like, roll their eyes, shaking my head. I do think it's Colorado. I'm sorry. And listen, I'm not saying that I think Colorado is going to be contending for the Big 12 title. I absolutely do not. Do I think they're going to make a bowl game? Yes. And here's the thing. When you look at what made them so bad last year, and I'm not talking about off the field, I'm not talking about in front of the podium. Their offensive line was garbage. Shedeur was sacked more than any other quarterback in Power 5. They went out and got 5 multi-year starters at offensive line to bolster that. The defense was not good. They brought in guys in the transfer portal. Now, Deion's not recruiting in high school. We know that's an issue. But when you look at what a surprise team looks like in Colorado, Ev said it earlier. Winning 1 game and then going to 4 without all the hoopla is pretty good. To me, if Colorado makes a bowl game, wins 7 games, maybe wins 8 and I think an easier conference than what they were playing in last year with Shedeur Sanders, who is one of the top quarterbacks in the country, Travis Hunter, who is one of the best athletes in the country, and you look at the power that they're bringing in, I think people are going to be surprised, because I think people are like, well, he stinks. Like, Deion stinks. He can't coach. They got the talent that they needed where they needed it, and I think they are going to take that next level step. They're not going to be competing for the national title. They're not going to be the Big 12 champion, but they are going to surprise people with how much better they got from year 1 to year 2 with Deion as their head coach.
Now you set me up.
I thought you were going to argue with me.
No,
Brandon,
I was letting it hang there. I was letting that be your own thing. I'm not going to fight back on you there.
But honestly, though, it's not like me. It's not like some weird homer pick. Like, everything I just said is true. They did go out and fix the issues that were the biggest problem. And
I think there's some other. Okay.
I'm talking just football standpoint.
Shedeur Sanders was the most sacked quarterback in the country. That's correct.
Right.
He also held the ball and ran into a lot of sacks. Like he didn't help the offensive line out very much. Does he get over that? Does that come along in time? I don't know. The offensive line was bad, but will he do the same thing to this offense? I don't know. It's just I think they got too far to go. I think they got too far to go. That's what I think.
That's fair. Okay, Brandon, who's your surprise team?
Country roads take me home to a place I belong.
Stop so we don't get demonetized. That was 5 seconds.
West Virginia. West Virginia. This time last year, we were basically you, me, Jack, and Katie were standing looking down in the grave of Neil Brown, and we had shovels, and we were just throwing dirt on him. We were throwing dirt on him. It's over for you. You're fired. You'll be gone. Forget it, Neil Brown. Well, guess what? he started climbing out, and he climbed out. He climbed out because he has a good quarterback. He climbed out because he has a good running game. He climbed out because he has one of the best offensive lines in the Big 12. He climbed out because they can score points, and he did so in a year. They had that loss to Penn State. They have probably the best opportunity of any Big 12 team in America in week 1. They get to play Penn State at home. And you talk about a tougher, tricky place. West Virginia is a tougher, tricky place. I'm not saying they're going to beat Penn State because I like Penn State a lot. I think Penn State's a very good team. I think they'll at least scare them. And they have a schedule that looks tough on the surface. Out of the top 7 Big 12 teams, they play 6 of them. Well, guess what? I think they can handle themselves. I think they end up in the top 5 of this conference. I think they end up at that 8 or 9 win range. I think defensively, they had some losses, had some transfer losses. They brought in some other transfers. It's going to be kind of a patchwork defense. But I know I got a quarterback. I know I got a running game. I know I got an offensive line. And I know I got a coach who is on his second life. I like West Virginia and the new look Big 12. I like them a lot.
Okay. You are 100% right, by the way. I think that we all said Neil Brown would be the first coach fired.
It was done.
I think we said I think he wouldn't get out of September is what we all said.
It was absolutely done. It was finito, finished. It was gone, but he saved it. He brought it back. So now we move on to our most disappointing team in the Big 12, and I'm almost certain that me and Big Ev are going to have the same one. But Big Ev, you go first.
Yeah, my most disappointing team, unfortunately, because they were very good to me betting-wise last year, is Arizona. I think they just had, other than, like I talked about before, other than bringing back Fafita, which is huge, the fact that they were able to keep Fafita and McMillan is massive. And it was actually kind of appreciate their loyalty to the program they left, because they could have been out of there to a much bigger, better team. But I just think, other than that, I just think so much has happened from last year. They did as much as they brought back, they lost quite a bit as well. New coach who, like Kayce said earlier, if Jed Fish was still the coach, I probably would not have had them in the spot because he left. Brent, I mean, he brought in some of his guys from San Jose State and some other transfers that are decent, but I just think I see disappointing because I think this is a team that people came into this year thinking they could be a legit conference title contender, legit playoff contender. And I just don't see it. If they only won 7 games, that wouldn't shock me at all. 8 games even. So yeah, they're going to be disappointed. I don't think they're going to contend for the Big 12 title this year and be like a middle-ish to maybe high middle of the road team in the Big 12.
Kayce, who's your most disappointing team in the Big 12?
Well, this goes against exactly what you just said, Brandon. I like West Virginia. I think that the hype around West Virginia is too high. I love their offense. Their defense lost a ton. And again, I think that they'll be fine. I don't think we're looking at a Neil Brown hot seat by any stretch by the end of this year. But the momentum that they had at the end of last season, and I think Garrett Green is great, the whole running back, wide receiver trifecta, all of that. I think that the expectations for them, where there was smoke, there was a little bit of fire going into that season. And yes, they found a way to win a lot of those games. I just don't expect it to be repeated. I don't think that they're going to go out and win 0 conference games, but I think there's way too much expectation for a coach that literally we had fired, dead and buried going into the season. Now, I could be completely wrong, but I think that West Virginia fans are looking at this like, shit, we almost fired our guy and we're going to win the Big 12 title this year. West Virginia is not winning the Big 12 this year, which is why I think they'll be the most disappointing.
All right. I guess I'll go now. My most disappointing team. Big Ev, you love this team a lot. You love them a lot. And I assume they're probably going to be your wild card team. I don't know. You haven't mentioned them yet in the surprise or anything, but my most disappointing team will be UCF.
Mm-hmm.
We like to do a thing in the world. Tell me that we don't do this. But anytime Gus Malzahn gets an intriguing running quarterback, we immediately say, oh, woo!
We do that.
This guy in Gus Malzahn's offense? Are you kidding me? This guy? Well, this guy this time around is KJ Jefferson, and this guy stinks. He is not good. He can't throw the ball, and his running is the most overblown thing in the world. He runs like he's in quicksand on top of he runs like he's in quicksand is what I'm trying to say. He doesn't run very well. He's big, he's physical, but he's slow as fuck. His high rushing season in Arkansas is like 600. That's not going to do it. You're in an exciting, explosive conference, and you've got a plodding, slow quarterback who's going to get 3-4 yards a carry. I know that Gus Malzahn's offense can make can make good quarterbacks out of a lot of people. I don't think he can do it out of KJ Jefferson. I look at the schedule. I look at, their first trip is at TCU. TCU is probably a middle of the pack Big 12 team. They're not that great. They're not that bad. But they got to go to Iowa State. They're not winning that game. They got to go to West Virginia. They close the season with Utah at home. I don't think they beat Utah at home. They can't beat Florida on the road. Like, everything that people like about this team is based on KJ Jefferson in the Gus Malzahn offense. And if I get rid of that premise, if I tell you that quarterback's going to stink, UCF falls apart. Like, I know they got speed at the skill positions. I know they got that. But without KJ, without a great quarterback to head that system, I think it all falls apart. UCF is my most disappointing team. Becca, what do you think?
I don't want to spoil anything.
Okay, well,
I'll get to UCF at some point.
Well, I'll say this. I didn't want the graphic to have the same team. I had Arizona written down, and then
I knew you did. You did.
Yeah,
it was pretty obvious Arizona was going to be my disappointing team for what I previously said.
Yeah,
Brandon, you are 1,000% correct that every time Gus Malzahn gets a dual threat quarterback, we do the same thing. But as you know, I hated KJ Jefferson at Arkansas. I'm going to hate him again. And there is some legitimacy to putting Gus Malzahn with a dual threat quarterback before you put Sam Pittman with a dual threat quarterback. I will give Big Ev a little bit of that. Like, I'm not saying that KJ Jefferson is going to turn into Cam Newton by any stretch of the imagination, but if I'm going to trust somebody with him, I trust Gus Malzahn over Sam Pittman.
All right, who is the wild card team in this conference, Big Ev?
Brandon, the wild card team in this conference is UCF. They are the wild card team. Because to me, they are the definition of wild card. I believe they have a very high ceiling, but they also could bottom out like a motherfucker, and that would not shock me whatsoever. A lot of the things you said, I agree with. That maybe even I'm getting too excited about Malzahn, KJ Jefferson. But the one thing I will say about KJ Jefferson and this team, and now UCF was not a good team by any means last year. They weren't awful. I think they went 6-6 in the regular season. I still think KJ Jefferson is an upgrade from Plumlee, and probably even a significant one. Maybe we'll disagree on that. I'm not sure, but I do think he is an upgrade. And I really like Harvey as the running back. I really think that they should obviously have an explosive. I think they should have an explosive offense. So if they ended up being in the top few of the conference, it wouldn't shock me at all. But like I said, if things go south, I think they could go very south, and they could be a team that is competing for a title game spot, and they could be a team that's in the bottom half of the conference. That wouldn't shock me whatsoever. So, wild card.
Kayce, who's the wild card in the Big 12?
It's the Kansas Jayhawks, Brandon, and it's solely, there's no need to get into like a huge long description about it. It's solely if Jalen Daniels can stay healthy. If Jalen Daniels can stay healthy, like, I think that they are contending for the Big 12 title. He's got that lingering injury. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like. They do have some questions on defense. I love Lance Leipold. I think that he's a fantastic coach, but if Jalen Daniels gets hurt again, I don't think that this team is anywhere near the top of this league. If he stays healthy, I think that they're contending for a Big 12 championship. So I don't feel comfortable enough to put them there because I don't know if this guy can stay healthy or not, but I love him. I love what this team is doing. Just hope the guy doesn't get hurt again. That's why they're my wild card team. Brandon, your wild card team?
So if you ask me to define wild card team, define a team that could be great or be terrible, define a team that could ruin seasons or make seasons, I would probably pick a team that in a 2-year stretch went 12-1 and played for a national title and then went 5-7. Mm-hmm. Because guess what? They were a lot worse than 12-1 playing for a national title, and they were a lot better than 5-7. Like, there was just the universe was off on TCU the last couple of years. It just couldn't figure TCU out. They were like, there was a glitch in the matrix, and they played for a title they deserved to never play for. They were not that good. Last year, they weren't that bad. Like, they were okay, and they just stumbled, and once they got in the stumble, they couldn't stop stumbling. Well, now you have a coach who's been there a few years. You get Chandler Morris just never worked there. It just never worked. And you get him out. You got Josh Hoover. You got some more talent. The running back situation has stabilized. The defense, I hope, is stabilized. You've got a return to normalcy for TCU. And TCU, to me, is somebody who lives at 8-4, 9-3. And I feel like they'll probably get back to that this year. They could suck again. But they could be good again. I can't really put my finger on them, I just trust them to not bottom out like they did last year. Schedule wise, I'm just looking at it. You know, they got UCF at home. They go to SMU, to Kansas. They got Utah on the road, get Baylor, but they get Oklahoma State and Arizona at home. They could absolutely screw the seasons for Oklahoma State and Arizona if they were to beat them in November. I think TCU is the wild card that defines this conference this season.
It is crazy to think that, like, we were talking about just how, I mean, I know you were always very low on them, but just like, oh my God, they figured it out. They're going to be a powerhouse. And then when we went to TCU last year for the college football show, it was just like a dead man. But like, I mean, they were excited that was there, but like, what are we doing here?
Not really. That was the deadest show we've ever had. That was, it was like, it was a zombie place. Like, they didn't deserve to have a Barstool sports show.
They were just like,
And I still don't understand. I've been here 5 years. We haven't gone to Starkville yet, but we have a fucking intern last year from TCU, and he gets the Barstool show to go to TCU. Like, how the fuck did he pull that off?
I don't think Dawson was the reason that we went to TCU last year.
Buddy, Dawson's 100% the reason we went to TCU.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I thought that they decided they wanted to do that because it was we had never been to Fort Worth.
He facilitated that whole thing.
Well, facilitate it. Let's go to Starkville.
No, I'd rather go be the heel.
I know you would.
I interviewed Sonny Dykes in his office last year.
Yeah.
They should never let people like me in that office.
Never. On that campus.
Ever. In his office.
By the way, lovely campus. It seemed like there had been a nuclear fallout, though.
Yeah.
It was oddly, and we were right in front of the stadium too. Like, you could see like into the stadium, and there was a ton of people there. It was just, my parents came. And I remember apologizing to them because I was like, it's usually a lot louder at these shows. Yeah. Like, I was like, it's usually much rowdier. But yeah.
That literally is the reason that we're keeping the second half schedule like open. Like, that was like, we can't do this shit anymore. We can't schedule November shows in fucking August because of that show.
All right. Who will be the player of the year in the Big 12? I'll go first because I haven't gone first yet. Yes?
Okay. Actually, no, go ahead.
What's your problem?
Well, no, because I feel like this is where, like, when we do player of the year, coach of the year, and like the team that's going to win the whole thing or whatever, like, I feel like we're just giving it all away.
I think the player of the year is the least giveaway. That's why I started with the player of the year. So
fair. Okay.
I'm going with the player of the year. Then we'll do champ, matchup, and coach.
Okay.
Because I do think coach often gives it away more than anything else.
Yes.
And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, my player of the year is not from a team I've got winning the championship. Sometimes you overthink things and you think, well, do I need my champion to have the player of the year? No. What you need to do is just think, who's the best player in this conference? That's easy. It's Ollie Gordon. Ollie Gordon at Oklahoma State is the best player in the conference. He's the best running back in the country, might be the best player in the country. So not going to overthink it. You know, Cam Rising at Utah, he will be the quarterback of a very good team. You got Avery Johnson. If he takes a step forward, Kansas State takes a step forward. All that's well and good, but Ollie Gordon's the best player. So Ollie Gordon is my player of the year. Big F, who you got?
So, obviously give Ollie Gordon a lot of consideration. I don't hate the pick at all. But I am going to go Cam Rising because I think what Cam Rising is going to really do this year is show his value to this football team. When he is the starting quarterback of this team, they win the conference title. That's just what happens. I understand it was the Pac-12, but they've done it, and I think they're going to do it again in the Big 12. I just think you're going to see, and I think a huge thing that's going to be for him is they added Dorian Singer in the transfer portal, who was a stud at Arizona. He I think just didn't fit in. There was a ton of weapons, a lot going on at USC, and I think now he's going to come to Utah. He's going to be the number one guy, and he's going to light it up. There's tons of playmakers on offense for him to build off of. The defense is going to be good. I just think it's setting up very well for them to have an unbelievable season. Say, this is our guy. This is the player of the year. And Oklahoma State, I just have more trepidation about, even though, listen, Ollie Gordon could go run for 2,000 yards again and just win it, and that definitely could happen. But I'm going Cam Rising, the best player on the best team.
Kayce?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ev and I are like 1-2 punch when it comes to Utah this year. I completely agree. I think it's going to be Cam Rising. Like, when you look at all the question marks that they did have when he was injured, him being back and healthy completely stabilizes that offense. You get some star power around him. And to think that, again, when you look at the Power Four and you think about new teams coming in and being able to win their conference, I think Utah is absolutely up there. And the best quarterback on the best team winning a conference that they weren't in last year, that to me screams player of the year. And again, it's assuming he stays healthy, which I think that he will. And I think that Utah is truly like, I mean, I'm not going to say leaps and bounds better than Oklahoma State or Kansas State, but I don't have any question in my mind that Utah's the best team as long as Cam Rising stays healthy.
All right. Well, I think that dovetails nicely into who's going to win the championship of this league, the Big 12 championship. I feel like you two are going to go first because you two are both going to say the same thing. Kayce, you can go first. Who wins the Big 12?
It'll be Utah, and they will be playing Kansas State. Now, when we talked about the Big 12, as a new conference, like the brand, I said a lot of things about Oklahoma State because I do think that having Texas and OU leaves a gigantic open pool for Oklahoma State to say, hey, this is our conference now. Mike Gundy's been there for 100 years. The issue with Oklahoma State to me is they have the talent. Obviously, Ollie Gordon is one of the best running backs in the country, if not the best. Mike Gundy, for some reason to me, just does not seem like he's ever going to be able to get over that hump. I don't care Oklahoma's not in it. I don't care the Texas in it. What I do like is with Kansas State and Chris Kleiman, who I have a lot more faith in than Mike Gundy. And then you look at what people think about Avery Johnson. Now, I know he's young. I know that he could easily come out and be like, hey, he was a guy we thought. It didn't come to fruition. I believe the hype. I mean, which it's crazy to me. And I know we talked about this with Ohio State. Like they chased away Will Howard and he's now starting at Ohio State. That's how good he is. And this kid's just sitting there. I love Kansas State. I just think Utah's a better team. And I don't know if y'all are going to talk about Oklahoma State or not. For some reason, I cannot get over the fact. I almost put Oklahoma State as my most disappointing team. Because if there was going to be a year Mike Gundy gets it done, it's without those two powerhouses. I just don't see it. But I love Kansas State, love their defense, and their offense has obviously found a dual threat guy that people think is pretty special. So, but Utah is going to win the whole thing.
Big Ev?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear I'm picking Utah to win the whole thing. Who I think they're going to be playing might be a surprise. Not a surprise from what I've said on the show, but I think they're going to be playing the Iowa State Cyclones in the Big 12 title game. I think Iowa State makes that big of a leap. I think they have a hell of a season. And yeah, I think they make it to the Big 12 championship game. Utah over Iowa State.
By the way, I'm taking notes for Liam, so he has this. So if I have to ask multiple questions, that's why. It's not because I'm not listening to you.
Brandon. Oh, I am as well.
Oh, okay, perfect. I was doing that just to ease my brain. Brandon, who is going to win the Big 12 and who's playing in the championship?
I think y'all are betting on a very consistent team. I really do. I think Utah. You can set your watch by the fact they're going to be tough. Going into that stadium is a tough environment, and yeah, Kyle Whittingham is a top 10 coach in the country. You can't dispute any of what you said. That's great. But gone are the days when they can wake up, go outside, and beat the shit out of a pillow fighting ass USC team. Gone are the days they can go just beat the piss out of Washington State or Arizona State. Now they're going to have to line up with some grown-ass men. And I'm not saying this conference is full of them throughout, but the two teams that play for the conference championship will not be Utah. It will not be Utah. Why? Because Utah, their first conference game is Baylor at home. They'll win that one. But then September 21st, they go to Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State beats them that day in Stillwater. Utah is chasing Oklahoma State the rest of the year. But Oklahoma State's also not going to win this league because Kansas State exists. Everything that's said about Kyle Whittingham is correct. He's a great coach. Chris Kleiman and Kyle Whittingham are very, very similar coaches. They're program builders that their team is not going to change much every year. You can bank on where they're going to be good every single year. Utah on that defensive line and those linebackers going to be good every single year. Kansas State offensive line and physicality going to be good every single year. Kansas State's going to run the ball every single year. And I think Kansas State is the most complete team. Avery Johnson, they're going to run and they're going to run and they're going to run and they're going to run some more. He's got a special running talent at quarterback. I like Avery Johnson. I like Kansas State to beat Oklahoma State to win the Big 12 championship this season.
I love it.
Therefore, my coach of the year is Chris Kleiman. That's my coach of the year. I don't like picking a coach of the year who's going to be in the top 3 the whole time. But I just think, let's give him some credit, some props. If they win this league with Utah coming in, with Arizona coming in, I like Kleiman. I'm going to call him my coach of the year. Big Ev, who's your coach of the year?
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious to me. I'm going Matt Campbell. I think this is his like revenge year. This is his you must have forgot year. Matt Campbell is back. One of the premier coaches of college football.
I don't like to usually pick the winner when it comes to a guy like Kyle Whittingham because he's just always up there in the conversation. But if you win the conference, your first year in the conference, you're going to be the coach of the year. And like I mentioned earlier, like he's been there for so long that he's now taken them from the Mountain West to the Pac-12. He's going to do it in the Big 12, and he's just so steady. But to win your conference the first year in it, yeah, you're the coach of the year. I don't hate the Matt Campbell pick, but to me, it's Kyle Whittingham.
Well, that's 3 different coaches, 2 different champions. I don't know how much variety we had here, but yeah, I think it's a wide open league, and it's going to be an exciting league. Like even if Utah wins the league, even if Kansas State wins the league, like I think it's going to be nip and tuck throughout. It's going to be just a war every Saturday, and I don't think there's a lot of. Do you say a cute baby right now? Is that what you're doing?
My son just popped up at the balcony door, and he was doing one of these things. So sorry, go ahead.
You had the cute baby all face there. Yeah, I and even in this conference, I feel like if the number 3 team is playing the number 11 team, that 3 team better be on their P's and Q's, because I think, we haven't mentioned certain teams like Texas Tech, and we haven't mentioned certain teams like Baylor, but I think those teams will be better, and I think they will at least make their presence known to people. And more. Well,
you want to talk about a hot seat? I mean, Dave Aranda. The fact that they won the Big 12 his first year, and everyone talked about the defense. Like him getting the extension that he did is surprising. And I'm sure in Liam's soapbox, his 15 minutes, he's going to hit all of these teams. Yeah. But Baylor. Every year going into fall camp, obviously every team is going to be excited. But if you listen to people talk about Baylor, they've got the resurgence of RG3 apparently.
I'm surprised Big Ev, because I know Big Ev's a huge Daquan Finn guy.
I am, but I just not this year with this team. I think he will play well, but I'm just not. Yeah, I just don't think they got it. But like I said, I like Daquan Finn. Honestly, I'm really a big Jalen Daniels guy. If I didn't go UCF as my surprise team, I would have said Kansas as well.
I think Jalen Daniels is just an absolute menace if he stays healthy.
I think the problem
if he stays healthy.
Right, which is why they're my wild card team. He is the full wild card. You talk about definition. It's if the man stays healthy, they're at the top of the conference. If he doesn't stay healthy Bean, I think he's gone, right? He's out of eligibility. Yeah. What are they going to do?
I just think my biggest thing with them is I just think their defense is still going to probably stink.
Brandon, you know what else has great variety? When we talk about the Big 12,
do I get to do what I want to do right now?
You get to eat. Our favorite Southern recipe, small batch pork rinds, and I swear I got the box sent to my apartment this week. They are just as good as Brandon advertised. Holy cow. The spicy dill
Let me tell y'all something.
Is so good. He's eating. Now, if you're watching, you can see this man's eating. Brandon, put your headphones on, sir. Put your headphones on. We know Brandon loves to eat. Ev, I like to eat. You like to eat.
Oh, yeah.
There is nothing like a snack that, by the way, not that everybody necessarily cares about nutritional value. I happen to. Pork rinds are phenomenal snacking because not only are they delicious and they've got the crunch, you don't have all the extra added stuff into them. Brandon, you missed it when you had your headphones off. I got my package delivery. You weren't lying about the spicy dill. You were not lying.
Right here. Let me tell you something. I think you can tell when I'm bullshitting. I really do. I do my best. When I put a spicy dill pork rind from Pork Rinds, it's pure joy. I love it so much. I don't know why spicy dill is such a good flavor for pork rind. Good. It is so. I shouldn't cuss. It's so freaking good. It is so freaking good. I love it so very much. Pork rinds. I think they got onto me for cussing the first week, and I've already said one cuss word in this ad. I'm not going to cuss again. I love you.
No,
I love
them too. And especially listen, maybe it makes me a little greedy. When they sent me the box of them, it wasn't it was 1 or 2 little bags. Oh, hey, here, try the product. They sent me a gigantic box of pork rinds, which made me so happy. Southern recipe, small batch pork rinds. The crunch is so beautiful. Find your rinds at porkrinds.com.
Immediately. All right.
Immediately.
So we have Blutman coming up with the 15 minutes to close us out, right?
Yep.
And
Who
he
knows what this man's going to say?
right, he does. He also he doesn't. He's already said his, so he doesn't know what we said. We don't know what he said. So he could tear down everything Big F said. He could say the exact same thing Big F said. It's all a mystery. We've got. I can't believe I'm about to say this phrase. 15 minutes of uncut Blutman coming right at you, and once he's done, that's it. That's unnecessary roughness, folks.
Yep. Hello again. Back after dinner here in Cincy and ready to talk about the Big 12. Still red as ever, but folks are saying I do look pretty cool like this. Nonetheless, let's get into the Big 12. We'll start again with my worst team. You want to start with that real quick and simple. Brendan Sorsby's the QB1. Scott Satterfield's the head coach of this team, fading Cincy. Win total's at 5 and the over is -160. That's crazy. I think there's only one gimme win on the schedule, and that's a season opener against Towson. I think that they're going to have difficulty with a decent chunk of teams on the schedule, including Pitt, including Miami of Ohio on the road, at Texas Tech, at UCF, yeah, ASU, at Colorado, whatever, at Iowa State, at Kansas State. It's not even the most difficult schedule. West Virginia sprinkled in there again. It's not even the most difficult schedule by any stretch of the imagination. I just think that they're poorly coached and don't have a good quarterback. And Dante Corleone's a disruptor. Yes, he is a menace in the trenches. Is he healthy? He is not a full participant yet. And I don't know if I'm sold on Scott Satterfield talking about him like he doesn't sound like he's fully confident that Corleone's going to be 100% from day one. That's not a good thing at all. Not in on Cincy. Shocked that they have a 5-win total. Shocked it's -160. I don't love the roster. I don't love the head coach. I don't love the quarterback. It's as simple as that. Disappointing team. I'm going to make people mad with this one. I already did last time with Mizzou, though, and people are bound to get angry. It is what it is. That's the nature of the game. I talked up Oklahoma. I'm talking down Oklahoma State. Over-under is set at 8. The over at -130. They're plus 750 to win the Big 12. Ollie Gordon is not good. He is great. Don't love the passing attack. I gotta be brutally honest here, guys. Playmakers are decent at wide receiver. They're solid, yes. Alan Bowman, you have 15 touchdowns, 14 picks last year? No, thank you. He's been in college since the Great Depression, perhaps. I don't like Alan Bowman. I just don't see it. I'm sure he's a cool guy, good guy. We're talking about football though, and I do not think he could win a Big 12 championship. I don't think he could get them back to the Big 12 championship. I know they got there last year, is where this stuff happens. I'm not banging on them this season. I'm not banking on Oklahoma State to get back there this season. The schedule is tough early on. We talk a lot about Colorado hosting North Dakota State. South Dakota State goes to Stillwater to play Oklahoma State. That's scary. Number 1 team in the FCS for a reason, back-to-back national champs. Then you still have to play Utah. You're at Kansas State, West Virginia. After a few weeks, you have 3 of 4 games at BYU, at Baylor, hosting ASU, at TCU. That's not easy. That's not crazy difficult at all that's whatever. It's still college football. And if you start slow out the gates, that 3 or 4 games on the road there in 4 games could become tough. And so, yeah, nice things about Oklahoma State, though. Kendall Daniels is a joy to watch at safety, a violent style of play, 6'4", 235, very intimidating, daunting. Big fan of Cam Smith at corner, fluid and technically sound, high caliber instincts. But yeah, I'm not in on Oklahoma State. I'm sorry. And something, I don't know. I'm not, whatever. I'm not down Oklahoma State. My surprise team, the Cyclones, Iowa State, plus 950 to win the Big 12, over under set at 7.5. I think Iowa State's a dangerous team, and I think Matt Campbell's going to get in his bag with this team. Very fun offense. Isaiah Alston's coming in from Army, freak athlete, one-handed catches. He shows off. He is a freak. I think he's 6'4", maybe 6'3". I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm sorry. Jalen Noel, so much speed. Jaden Higgins is reliable, great contested catch guy. Throw the ball up, he's going to make a play. And I think they have one of the soon-to-be best running backs in the country. I don't think people view him like that right now. They will soon enough. Abu Sama the third, monster. He is a menace who consistently hits top speeds and possesses lethal explosiveness. Big play waiting to happen. Elite vision, immaculate footwork, such great patience before hitting that hole and killing defenses. It won't be long until he's talked about as one of the best players in the country. Forget just being one of the best running backs in the world. He'll be one of the best players in the country soon enough. I like Jalen Travis at left tackle, transfer from Princeton, brother of Reed, who folks might know. Basketball, yes, his brother. Worthy of a lot of NFL draft type. I know he's already got from Senior Bowl guys, Shrine Bowl guys. I liked him a lot going into last year. I think he's going to be the Princeton to Iowa State transfer doesn't happen much. You'll see why it does happen, why it's happening here. He's a great player. Secondary as well is oozing with a lot of high caliber talent. John Tez Williams stud, Miles Purchase stud, Jeremiah Cooper stud, Bo Frailer stud, Malik Verdon stud. I like Iowa State a lot. They got a lot of good pieces, man. And they got a running back that's going to kill it. Rocco Beck has some things to work on. I understand. I think he'll take some strides in his game, though, and become a pretty confident, competent quarterback that helps him win games. I'm in on Iowa State. 3 of 4 to end the year at Kansas versus Cincy, at Utah versus Kansas State. Pretty tough. 4 games there. 3 of them are tough. One of them, Cincy, they'll win that. Whatever. They could come out swinging out the gates, though. I think they could start 6-2, 7-1, or 8-0, though. That goes into my player of the year, who's Abu Sama the third. I think he at 84 carries last year for 614, 7.3 yards per rush, 6 touchdowns. Get ready to see a whole lot more of that. He'll go over 1.5. He'll get close to the 2,000 mark, probably, right? He'll get around there. 1.8, I'll say, be safe. I don't know. I'm just spitballing numbers right now. 13 touchdowns, probably. I like Abu Sama a lot. Yeah. Coach of the year, it's not Matt Campbell. It ties into my title game pick. I have Utah taking down K-State. So my coach of the year is going to be Kyle Wingham. I think Utah's going to win a lot of football games. Cam Rising and Brant Keithy, that connection's on display for the 19th consecutive season. Kind of amazing that the show's still running. Dorian Singer's a big addition to the offense. He needs a bounce back year after a bizarre 2023 season at USC. He started hot. He had 2 touchdowns, had one in the opener. 2 touchdowns the first 3 games, then just fell out of sorts. He never really meshed with Caleb. I don't think Lincoln loved him. He was so good at Arizona 2 years ago, and just it wasn't there at SC. Whatever. He's a plus athlete, great hands, concentration skills, great size. I'm all in for a revival here. Junior Tafuna, brute force in the trenches. He could dictate the run game. Defensively speaking, of course. Zamaya Vaughn, 6'2", 187, cornerback, love him. Stems from he was a quarterback in high school. I love that background. I love when you have a highly talented cornerback who played quarterback in high school and just understands how to read a defense, dissect things, or he uses that for a defense. It's how the whole route tree and the timing of quarterback to receiver and this and that, dissecting routes early on. I love everything about that. He was a good enough quarterback, dual threat to go play at Lamar, chose corner instead. It's working out well for him. He'll be a highly talented NFL guy. I think prolific combo of size, speed, length, long, overwhelming arms makes life so difficult for wide receivers. Instincts, combative style of play. He's going to be a big time draft riser. I think Utah goes 11-1. I mentioned Kyle Wingham, coach of the year. Utah beating Kansas State in the Big 12 championship game. I like K-State. Avery Johnson pushed Howard out of town for a reason, essentially. I'm stoked for a lot of people stop doubting him and quickly recognize that this kid's the real deal. Elite speed, live arms, simple yet dangerous combination that's going to keep defenses up late at night. DJ Giddens and Dylan Edwards, 1-2 punch on the backfield is pretty nice. A lot of talent in the wide receiver room. Keegan Johnson's fast. Dante Cephas. Sterling Lockett. He's, like Tyler. Very fast. J.C. Brown, Trace Bybee. They've got guys at receiver. I'm excited to watch Kansas State. I'll get into the rest of the teams I didn't touch on. Arizona, I love Arizona. I wish Jed Fish was still there. If Jed Fish was still there, Arizona was a playoff team. It hurts. No Fafia, Tatoria McMillan, premier quarterback wide receiver duo, as well as podcast host. Yeah, Fafia's undersized at 5'10", but he makes up for it in so many ways. Excellent versus the blitz and is terrific in the pocket. Cool, calm, collected. Sixth in there is more than willing to take hits in order to make a play. Tough. Missile thrower who has a sublime deep ball. McMillan, 6'5" target, probably 6'4" will get measured in that in the NFL. Freak athlete, remarkable body control, sticky hands. These guys are incredible. Their starting left tackle, Raymond Polito, is unavailable this season. Then I need to talk about this guy. It stinks I've gotten so long into this and I haven't talked about him. Tacario Davis, shining star at cornerback. He's just 20 years old. He could very well be a top 15 pick in the upcoming NFL draft. 6'3", great physical tools to complement that size, lengthy arms, range, speed, so good. Man coverage, had 7 pass breakups last year, allowed just 3 catches on 16 targets in man coverage in 2023, 14 pass breakups on the season. He is the real deal. To touch on ASU quickly, loaded running back room with Scadaboo, Dakars, Brooks, Alton, McCaskill, and Raleek Brown. Those are 4 running backs that could start a lot of programs. Baylor, Daquan Finn, exciting play style, athleticism, speed will be on full display. I'm excited to see if Michael Trigg could find his game here after not really panning out at SC or Ole Miss. Underrated name on the offense, Texas State transfer Ashton Hawkins, flashy footwork, big time speed, menace after a catch. He's killing it. He killed it in spring camp. He's going to kill it in fall camp. You'll see him on this fall. Really good player. His contested catch ability could surprise people. Reliable hands. Smaller at 5'10", 170, probably a bit smaller than that. Late round NFL draft prospect, in my opinion. I think he is the real deal. BYU's Chase Roberts, a stud who caught my eye during the Baylor Friday night game in 2022. Sure-handed, tracks the ball very well, add muscle in the offseason. Colorado, Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, headline things here, obviously. Dallin Hayden pickup, I really like. He's going to be a threat. Jimmy Hornet, receiver, another threat. So much speed. How about Will Shepherd, though, coming in? He's going to be a problem. People aren't really aware of how good he is, and that happens when you play a school like Vanderbilt. Now he's there playing for prime time. A lot of people are going to talk about smooth route runner who rarely makes mistakes, superb at the point of attack. I love the LeJontay Wester pickup as well. He was the feature in the darts only meme that went viral. I guess Colorado didn't meme it, but we memed it. Very good addition to the offense. Ironically, would fit in beautifully with the former OC Sean Lewis. But he's here now, whatever. A year too late. Big play machine, elite speed, shiftiness. Houston Dawson. Donovan Smith has a lot of tools. Can you put it together? People are seeming to think he's a legit round 1 prospect. I like the guy. I enjoy watching him. I don't see it, especially when he's playing on a team like Houston as a win total of 3.5. You're not going to the first round after winning 3-4 games. I just don't see it happening. Big size at 6'5", 235, strong arm, a lot of physical tools. Accuracy and decision-making issue that show up in big moments. I'll also be monitoring true freshman wide receiver Kobe Young. Kansas. Offense will be so much fun to watch with the speed of Jalen Daniels and Devin Neal. Hard to find a more fun quarterback running back duo to watch. Hopefully, they're both healthy. Kobe Bryant, not just a shutdown corner and coverage, really good in run support as well, secure tackler. TCU, I heavily recommend investing in true freshman running back Cam Cook. Cam the Chef Cook. He's going to build a heavy following, former track star, quick, innate footwork, loves the jump cut, but even more so the spin move. Lacks top and elite speed, but has more than enough explosiveness and is such a tough runner who is difficult to tackle at 5'11", 195 pounds. I'm going to have a lot of fun watching him. I'm also going to have a lot of fun watching the tortillas fly at Texas Tech. I love Bayron Morton, a gunslinger who plays an entertaining brand of football. Dealt with the shoulder injury last fall, but he's back to his regular throwing motion in 2024. Throws a heater, gets it all over the yard. Know what that's good for? When you've got talented wide receivers like Josh Kelly, Dre McCray, Coy Eakin, and future star of this league, star of this sport at the college and NFL level, Micah Hudson. Tight ends, Mason Tharp, and the specimen that is Jalen Conyers will be very impactful players as well. Taj Brooks. He's striving to become a more all-around running back, tough, hard-nosed, bowling ball build, lethal sidestep, makes him almost impossible to tackle. You need multiple guys to get him on the ground. Almost done. Sorry, fellas. And fillets. Is KJ Jefferson good? Just throwing it out there. Is he good? I'm not the one to answer that because I don't think he is. Stellar 1-2 punch at running back for UCF, though, with RJ Harvey speed and Penny Boone's ruggedness. Transfer from Toledo. West Virginia, and then we're out here, folks. Jaheim White and CJ Donaldson are a silly good backfield with so much speed and explosiveness. White's smaller, he's 5'7". He puts defenders into a blender with his footwork. Donaldson, 6'2", 238, former tight end, tough, nasty runner, exceptional blend of size, speed, toughness. The feet never stop churning. He needs a big year this year. Kind of struggled last year, had the neck injury in the past. Hopefully he's healthy and ready to go. Big 12, that was it. See you guys. It's 11:47 at night in Cincy. I need to go to bed.